Good morning, good morning, good morning. The time for convening has arrived. Senate will come to order. At this time, I will ask all unauthorized personnel to exit the chamber. I recognize the senator from the 28th. The reading of the journal.
Good morning, Mr. President. Hope you're doing well today. Got a little sports trivia for you today.
All right.
In 2015, the Atlanta Hawks set a new NBA monthly win record as they moved to 17-0 in January. So I think we're a little bit off from that this year, but maybe we can have a good February. Today is Backwards Day, Eat Brussels Sprouts Day, and Scotch Tape Day, in case you were wondering. We got a great lineup of pages this morning, a good crew, so I'm proud of you senators for promoting this great program back in your districts. Out of my hometown, Newnan, Georgia, we have Worth Smith. Worth, wave. In fact, his grandfather's with us, Commissioner John Rottelbach, up there in the balcony. Out of Gainesville, Georgia, we got Wyatt Elliott. Out of Valdosta, home of my daddy, we have Lane Smith. Out of Portal, Georgia, we have Lee Drawdy. Out of Decatur, Georgia, home of my mama, we have Elena Friedman Hall. Out of Alpharetta, we have Ellie Plunkett. And out of Perry, Georgia, we got Nicholas Free. Y'all give our pages a big round of applause. Thank y'all for being here today. We look forward to working with you. Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
All right, Senator. I appreciate it, and thank you, pages, for being here today. Glad to have each and every one of you. Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and references of Senate bills and resolutions. Mr. Secretary.
Senate Bill 426 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 40 of the OCGA relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to revise requirements.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 427 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Titles 10 and 26 of the OCGA relating to commerce and trade in food,
Judiciary.
drugs. Senate Bill 428 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 51 of the OCGA relating to tort. Senate Bill 429 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Titles 28, 31, and 50 of the OCGA relating to General Assembly
Regulated
health.
industries.
Senate Bill 430 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 16.
Economic development.
Senate Bill 431 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 432 by Senator Harrell of the 40th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 15 of Article 6 of Chapter 2.
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 433 by Senators Cowser of the 46th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 434 by Senator Burns of the 23rd, a bill to be entitled an act to create a Board of Elections and Registration for Glasscock County to provide for its powers and duties.
State and local government. Senate
Bill 435 by Senator Ginn of the 47th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend
Regulated
Title.
industries.
Senate Resolution 527 by Senator Payne of the 54th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Veterans' Mental Health and Housing and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 533 by Senator Ginn of the 47th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to...
Regulated industries.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading references of House bills and resolutions.
House Bill 884 by Representative Alexander of the 66th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1562 of the OCGA relating to...
Judiciary.
House Bill 906 by Representative Bureau of the 152nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1562.
Judiciary.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read reports of standing committee.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Children and Family has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Resolution 471 do pass, Senate Resolution 474 do pass, and Senate Bill 387 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 405 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Ethics has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 189 do pass by substitute and Senate Bill 212 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burns of the 23rd District Chairman. Additionally, Mr. Secretary, pursuant to Senate Rule 216, I hereby notice that I will introduce a minority report to be read along with the majority report of Senate Bill 189, which passed out of ethics on January 30th, 2024. Sincerely yours, Senator Gloria Butler. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 412 do pass and Senate Bill 410 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kauser of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Ethics has had under consideration the following legislation. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Bill 344 by Senator Ana Bitarte of the 31st and others, sales and use taxes, firearms, ammunition, gun safes, and related accessories during an 11-day period each year exempt. Senate Bill 377 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, courts and social services, licensing of qualified residential treatment programs provide. Senate Bill 378 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, trafficking of persons, increased sentences for persons convicted of trafficking a minor or a developmentally disabled person for sexual servitude provide. Senate Bill 386 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, state government, regulation, and taxation of sports betting in the state authorized and provide. Senate Bill 396 by Senator Halpern of the 39th and others, economic development, Georgia Statewide Music Office create. That completes the order, Mr. President.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Recognize Senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 39th, 35th, and 38th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senators from the 39th, 35th, and 38th will be excused. Recognize the senator from the 45th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 54th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 45th will be excused. Recognize the senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 2nd, the 5th, and the 10th. And the 14th.
Without objections, the senator from the 2nd, the 5th, the 10th, and the 14th will be excused. Recognize the senator from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask to excuse the senator from the 50th for business inside the Capitol.
I'm sorry, Senator, I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
The senator from the 50th for business inside the Capitol.
50th. Without objection, the senator from the 50th will be excused. Any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll. Senator, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary, unlock the machine. Now it's time for the morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all conversation. I would ask the doorkeepers to secure the chamber at this time. I now recognize our good friend from Southeast Georgia, a good senator from the 23rd, and leading us in our pledge and introducing our pastor of the day. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. If you will join me, colleagues, for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the Georgia flag. Pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag for the principles which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. Thank you, colleagues. It is my pleasure this morning to introduce to you a great friend and colleague from Sylvania, Georgia. We have with us today the Reverend Dorsey Atkinson. Dorsey is a pastor of the First United Methodist Church in Sylvania, but he grew up in North Carolina and went to NC State. So we don't hold that against him, okay? But he came to Georgia in the textile industry, working for Forsman across Georgia, primarily in the Dublin, Milledgeville, Tifton, and Louisville area, working for Fieldcrest Cannon, but then responded to a call to the ministry and became a minister in the United Methodist Church. He went to Ashbury Seminary, has a master's degree in divinity, and as an ordained minister. And I would suggest to you that one of the most unique things about Reverend Atkinson is he was the boat church preacher. So he led a boat church ministry on Lake Blackshear for the United Methodist Church, and perhaps he'll share with you some stories. But he was known as the boat church preacher. Now, in Sylvania and the Bullock County area, he's simply referred to as Preacher Man. Preacher Man. He was the founding pastor of the Life Spring Church in Bullock County. He's been in the ministry for over 15 years, 20 years. He'll probably tell us more. He's currently the chairman of the board of directors for the Open Heart Community Mission in Bullock County, which is a rescue ministry. He serves as the president of the Sylvania Rotary Club, and he's a board member of the Congregational Development for the South Georgia Conference of the United Methodist Church. He's joined here today by his beautiful wife, Jody, and we're grateful to have with us today the Reverend Dorsey Atkinson. Please listen to his kind words.
Good morning. I want to thank Senator Max Burns, who continues to faithfully represent the interest of his beloved constituents from District 23, as well as the other hard-working men and women in other districts across the state, for this opportunity to speak to this assembly of his fellow servant leaders of our great state of Georgia today. Senator Burns has told me what a privilege it is to work with you in this special place, almost a sacred space, a room where, after personally researching this, I have found that many miracles of God are known to have occurred at nearly every session, a place where you, senators of our great state, invite seasoned pastors, clergy, ministers, and preachers to this special assembly of Georgia's elected servant leaders, and then ask them to do a devotional and prayer in under 5 minutes. Yes, this is definitely a place of miracles. And right now, Senator Burns is probably hoping to see another miracle like this very soon. Now, in my opening remarks, I used the phrase servant leaders to identify those of you in this room. Some of you here today are both privileged and burdened to be called elected servant leaders. You see, in my mind, every one of you, from the greatest to the least, whether you're on the floor or in the balcony, are leaders, servant leaders, and that God has uniquely positioned you to make a positive impact on many people's lives. In 1970, an essay published by Robert Greenleaf he coined the phrase servant leader or servant leadership. In his essay, he writes, "The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. That person is sharply different from the one who is leader first. The difference manifests itself in the care taken by the servant leader to make sure that other people's highest priority needs are being served." Friends, a servant leader focuses primarily on the growth and the well-being of people and the communities to which they belong. A servant leader shares power, puts the needs of others first, helping people develop and perform as highly as possible. So how can you do this? Well, first of all, you must remember who you are serving. Serving below you, serving beside you, and serving above you. Colossians 3, verses 23 through 25 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ that you are serving." You see, this passage is a reminder that no matter who the servant leader is, particularly those who are elected servant leaders, that is the Lord Jesus Christ the servant leaders are serving, especially when they are serving and leading others. This passage also serves as a strong reminder to the servant leaders. We have to work at it, even when it is difficult, even when we are tired or frustrated, even when it seems that no one notices or no one even cares, even when we are uncertain what the future might hold. We are to work at it with all our heart as working for the Lord and not for human masters. This means as servant leaders, we must ask ourselves the difficult questions and then adjust our efforts and actions accordingly based on the answers that we receive. Difficult questions like, are those we serve growing as persons? Are those being served by us becoming healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to one day become servant leaders also? What is the effect my actions are having on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit or at least not be further deprived? Difficult questions to ask for sure, and many times more difficult to adjust our lives to as a response to the answers. In 1755, 33 years before our state of Georgia was founded, John Wesley, who is credited with establishing the Methodist movement, introduced a prayer that he had adapted from a Puritan named Richard Aileen. Wesley encouraged people to pray this covenantal prayer at the beginning of each year as a reminder and a reaffirmation of the individual commitments that they each had made to God. In a way, it was a reminder to those who prayed it of who each of them are and whose they are, and that they were Christ's representatives in the world, a world that, much like today, needed to witness both God's love and justice in the actions of their servant leaders. Like many of you today, I also have many irons in the fire, many responsibilities that lie before me each day, and I need to be reminded of my own personal commitments that I have made to God, as well as to be reminded of what God has called and positioned me to uniquely do in this world. So each day, I choose to pray this prayer aloud as part of my daily morning devotionals. And right now, I can think of no more fitting prayer to begin today's session. A unifying prayer to remind us as individuals and a group of your personal commitment that you've made to God, privately and in public. A revitalizing prayer reminding each of you of what God has called and uniquely positioned you to do in this world today by your words and actions as His servant leaders. So I have modified Wesley's covenantal prayer to not only pray over you today, but to pray with you as a fellow servant leader of our great state's assembly of servant leaders who are now before me. Would you please rise as we pray? Heavenly Father, we are no longer our own, but yours. Put us to what you will. Rank us with whom you will. Put us to doing. Put us to suffering. Let us be employed for you or laid aside for you, exalted for you or brought low for you. Let us be full. Let us be empty. Let us have all things. Let us have nothing. We freely and heartily yield all things to your pleasure and disposal. And now, O glorious and blessed God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you are ours, and we are yours. So be it. And the covenant which we have made on earth, let it be ratified in heaven. Amen.
Artillery. It is always good to have our physicians of the day with us today. If I could have everybody's attention, please. That will get your attention right there now, Senator. That suit right there. That looks good. Good. Always good to have our physicians here today, and we've got two young ladies here from Augusta, and I want to recognize our senator from the 19th to introduce our docs of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Champa Woodham, a professor in the Division of Maternal Fetal Medicine at the Medical College of Georgia and a director of the Regional Prenatal Center at Augusta University, to our body this morning. She'll serve as our doctor of the day downstairs. Dr. Champa, as we call her, received her bachelor's degree from Emory in 2001. She then went to Emory University School of Medicine and completed her MD and remained at Emory to finish her internship and residency in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology in 2009. Dr. Woodham went on to complete a fellowship in maternal fetal medicine at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She is board certified in OB-GYN and maternal fetal medicine. You will see that our body has spent much time recently trying to increase fellowships in maternal fetal medicine, as there are very few, maybe 12.
In the state, only one other.
In the Southeast, one, and only one other in the state. Definitely a much-needed field as we work to tackle issues concerning maternal health, and Dr. Champa is at the forefront. She has with her today one of the third-year residents, Dr. Summers, who's originally from Massachusetts. We're using our residency program. As you know, we funded and overfunded over the past few years to try to drag her and help her understand that it's a lot better to live in the peach state than a frozen tundra. Again, Dr. Champa, we thank you for coming here today, and turn the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Senator Tillery. Hopefully you can see me. I don't know if the front row can. I'm on my tippy toes. So it's so great to be here, and I just want to thank all of you for all the work that you do and for the support that you have provided for us to start our high-risk OB fellowship. That means a lot, and I'm glad that I get to share this opportunity with one of my residents. I think this is a great learning opportunity. Thank you all for everything that you do, and we hope we don't have to see you at the Med Aid station, but if you need our help, we will be there. Thank you.
We have a lot of special guests here today. Law enforcement officers from all over the state. Police chief, I see my chief up there, Derek Austin. I see you. Why didn't you come down here, Derek? But we have a special resolution, and the Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 495 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others. A resolution recognizing January 31st, 2024 as Police Chiefs and Heads of Law Enforcement Agencies Recognition Day at the Capitol and for other purposes. Whereas in the state of Georgia, there are more than 700 police chiefs and heads of law enforcement agencies, and whereas these brave law enforcement leaders provide public service above and beyond the call of duty, often at great personal risk and tremendous sacrifice of not only themselves, but also their families. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize January 31st, 2024 as Police Chiefs and Head of Law Enforcement Agencies Day at the state capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. I recognize the Chair of Public Safety to speak to the resolution and introduce our special guest, Senator from the 54th. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Very excited to recognize our chiefs of police and heads of other policing agencies throughout our state. Our law enforcement are aptly named the finest. These are the men and women that we count on to protect and serve each one of us. In the last many years, it's never been harder or more challenging to wear that badge and to be a part of the community that protects while at the same time literally and figuratively being under attack. So today, we in Georgia, as we do every day, unapologetically back the blue. And we're here today represented by some of the board members for the chiefs of police and the many others who are here in the gallery who will be visiting you in your office, and we'll be having another picture with all the chiefs today on the south steps at 1 o'clock. I hope each and every one of you can be there. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Chief Scott to give us a few brief remarks. Chief?
Thanks, sir. Good morning. We just want you guys to know how much we appreciate your support. We appreciate you here at the Capitol, and we appreciate each one of you back home. And we want you to know that you can count on us. You can call on our association anytime. We're always willing to give information and give support. And you can come see us at our offices back home. We'd love to get to talk to you about some of the issues that are facing our state and our profession. Thank you.
Got another group here from Dunwoody that our senator from the 40th has brought before us today. Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 496 by Senators Harrell of the 40th and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Dunwoody Police Chief William J. Billy Grogan as Georgia's 2023 to 2024 Outstanding Police Chief of the Year and for other purposes. Whereas Dunwoody Police Chief Billy Grogan is highly regarded by its citizens of his community and state and by local government officials as a person of unquestioned integrity, humility, and dedication to the sound principles of law enforcement. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend the care, courage, and selfless dedication exhibited by Dunwoody Police Chief William J. Billy Grogan in carrying out the difficult duties of his vocation and congratulate him upon his recognition as Georgia's 2023 to 2024 Outstanding Police Chief of the Year. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I recognize the senator from the 40th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my honor this morning to recognize Chief Billy Grogan as the 2023 to 24 Outstanding Police Chief of the Year. It was probably the best decision back in 2008 when Dunwoody was a new city that we stole the chief from Marietta and brought him over to the new city of Dunwoody in 2008, where he has served for the entire time of the life of Dunwoody so far. I have never heard a bad word about Chief Grogan because he has served with care, courage, and selfless dedication. It is my pleasure to introduce Chief Billy Grogan.
I just want to say thank you so much to this body for this resolution. It's much appreciated. Sometimes being a police officer is a thankless job, and certainly being a police chief can be one too. But thanks to the folks like you and the city managers and mayor and council that we serve under, we know that certainly police officers and certainly I is appreciated. So thank you all very much.
Are there any unanimous consents? Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? I recognize the senator from the 6th on a point of personal privilege.
I wrote it. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. Based on 2022 assessment data from the state of Georgia, nearly 60% of third graders are not reading on grade level. My son, colleagues, is one of those third graders. The numbers aren't much better for older kids in Georgia. According to the latest NAEP scores, a nationally normed reading assessment, approximately 68% of 4th and 8th graders in Georgia are not proficient readers. Many of these children, including my son, have dyslexia. In fact, about 20% of school children have dyslexia. Colleagues, today is the Dyslexia Day at the Capitol. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about my personal experience as a parent with this disorder. For years, I thought dyslexia was a fairly narrow learning disorder. Essentially, you flip your letters and your numbers. which makes it a little challenging to read. This myth is what contributed to my wife and I missing clear signs of the disorder in our very own son. It started in kindergarten and first grade, where my wife and I noticed that my son was struggling to learn how to read. But at the time, we attributed it to the pandemic because, like many children across Georgia, he was virtual learning for nearly a year. We also figured that he would catch up since he was the youngest in his class, and he's a boy, and boys tend to be slow learners. But by the second grade, we became worried when, after some additional support, like tutoring, he continued to struggle and was well below the national average on his reading assessments. It simply did not make sense. He was way too smart in our minds for him to struggle this much with reading. My wife and I decided to get more intensive tutoring from the speech school, the Atlanta Speech School, which meant that he needed to be evaluated by a clinician. It was at that moment our understanding of my son's struggle changed our perspective on dyslexia. The clinician and later an educational psychologist told us that my son had deficits in phonological processing, orthographic processing, retrieval, and working memory. Some of which, by the way, I struggle with myself, but that's a story for another day. The news was shocking to my wife and I, but here's the kicker. The clinician told us that even if we did nothing at all, our son was likely to be just fine. However, his confidence and enjoyment of school were significantly at risk because he was going to have to work twice as hard as other kids to do the same amount of learning academically. That broke our heart. And it immediately had me thinking about all of the kids that go through our school systems each and every day, whether they're private school or public school, that have not been diagnosed or treated for dyslexia. As a result, they are at increased risks for disruptive behavior, not fulfilling their full potential, or even worse, dropping out of school. How many of our students, colleagues, could we have saved had we known that they had dyslexia? Here's the good news. We can fix Georgia's literacy problem and do it without forcing every parent across the state to pay thousands of dollars and spend hours getting their children evaluated. We could also save them from having to spend thousands of dollars in private school instruction, especially with many of these schools having massive wait lists. Given the lack of capacity to diagnose and provide private school seats to address the sheer number of students that need services, we have to systematically change the public school system where 90% of Georgia's students are enrolled. Here are a few things that we have to work on, colleagues. First, we have to change our curriculum in K through 12 education to align with the science of reading. It may surprise you, but kids today are not learning how to read the same way that you learned how to read. We have to go back to that. We also have to tweak some supports that we provide students, including smaller class sizes and retention for students that continue to struggle to read so they can receive more intensive supports. We need to change the way the university system teaches our teachers how to teach kids how to read, because they are also using curriculum that is not aligned with the science of reading. And we need to make sure that our parents and our school systems are equipped with early warning tools and assessments. And this body has already taken steps towards making sure that that's a reality, but we have to make sure that we provide the quality and the resources needed to make those tools effective. And most importantly, we have to engage our parents. Parents are an important piece of this puzzle, and when they get assessment results, we have to equip them with the knowledge and the know-how of what to do when their children are showing signs of a learning disorder. Colleagues, this is Georgia's most solvable crisis, but it's going to take resources and a sustained investment at every level, from the state to local school boards. I look forward to working with each one of you to advance this cause. Georgia's children are counting on us. I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I rise today on Dyslexia Day at the Capitol to recognize the many people with this disability. Let's also recognize all the people who provide training and support for dyslexia, including all of you right here in this chamber. Everyone with dyslexia deserves the opportunities and resources to succeed. Dyslexia affects 1 in every 10 Georgians. There's no link, as we were just hearing from the senator from the 6th, between dyslexia and intelligence. It is simply a condition that makes it hard for people to learn how to read because their brains are wired differently. Today, I'm feeling more hopeful about this and tackling our crisis in literacy than I did a year ago. We are on the road to making sure that every child learns to read. We can screen every child for dyslexia, and we can make sure our educators use proven methods to get kids reading. Let's take a moment to recognize those who have put us this far down this path. There are many advocates from Decoding Dyslexia here with us today, and I thank all of you for your steadfast advocacy on behalf of Georgians who have been diagnosed with dyslexia, those who struggle with reading, and for helping ensure that all of our children can read efficiently. Thank you so much. Your tireless efforts to partner with legislators here has made an enormous impact, contributing to passing legislation like HB 538 and advocating for funding it. I want to recognize all of you, my colleagues, and especially, he's missing, the senator from the 4th, who have also supported literacy by supporting HB 538. Let's note that our job is not yet done. We are going to need to continue to appropriate the money to effectuate these good first steps. Last year's literacy laws were an excellent, excellent first step. This year, we're poised to take a second step with over $11 million in proposed funding for literacy efforts in the 25 budget. That would be over $5 million for screenings to detect dyslexia and other problems as early as kindergarten, and $6 million for regional literacy coaches to support our teachers and districts. To realize gains, it is critical that we follow through on the funding. We are tasking the Georgia Department of Education to be good stewards of these funds, and we need them to step up to fulfill the promise of the legislation and funding that we are putting into place. We have some challenges, I fear. So far, for example, the State Board of Education has approved 16 screeners, but the Sandra Deal Center's review found that only 8 of these were the strongest tools, while 3 were actually weak. And currently, Georgia DOE is developing their own screener whose psychometric strength remains unknown. Here's a big issue. Results can't be compared across different screeners, so really approving 16 is a problem. We need as few approved screeners as possible if we want to be able to collect meaningful data on how children are performing across Georgia. These tools, without the professionals to implement them, also would be useless, and we know that literacy coaches are a key to success here. Our children, teachers, and administrators need and deserve ongoing support. We need to ensure that DOE consistently vets screening tools, curricula, and supplemental materials. Districts need these new materials ASAP. Let us honor the dyslexia advocates that are joining us here today by continuing their work. Going forward, we must keep funding and supporting high-quality literacy resources. In this way, we can ensure a bright future for Georgia with successful children and a prepared workforce. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 53rd, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come to the well on a point of personal privilege today to share my experience of what happened to me yesterday. A whistleblower reached out to my office and said, I've got something mighty disturbing going on at the Atlanta airport. He was a worker at the Atlanta airport. He said on Mondays and Tuesday nights between about 7 and 11 o'clock at night, he said illegals, immigrants, come into the Atlanta airport. He said they bring them right through the domestic terminal. He said, I think you should come out and take a look. So yesterday I did. I went to the Atlanta airport and I showed up at that domestic terminal, and he said they'll be clear as day. They'll be walking right out. I waited for about 2.5 hours. I looked at every single person coming out, and I only saw 1 or 2 people that you might suspect as being an illegal immigrant. And finally the whistleblower comes over to me. And he says, Senator, you're looking in the wrong place. He said, they're up there on the 2nd floor. You got to go up there. He said, you'll see 2 members of the U.S. Army sitting outside of a door. He said, tell them I sent you. And I did, Mr. President. I went up there and I walked past some caution tape, and there I had a man behind me with a cell phone. He was videotaping all this. And I go up to the U.S. Army man and I said, sir, I said, I'm Senator Colt Moore. I represent Northwest Georgia. I said, I hear there's some illegal immigrants around here. Could you point me in the right direction? And he pointed at the door across the way. Mr. President, about that time that door opened. And I stepped inside, and it was full of people from all corners of the globe. There were NGOs there sorting paperwork between them. Some of them were walking out and out onto the streets of Atlanta. Others were vying for a ticket somewhere else. Mr. President, I grabbed my phone and I proceeded to reach up above the people who were trying to stop me to get a video. At that point, the member of the U.S. Army grabbed that phone, and he and I had a tussle as he took it away from me. But I ended up grabbing it and taking it myself. Video footage, Mr. President, of a president of the United States, who I call King Biden, allowing human traffickers and using the United States Army to protect them as they are being transported through our airport. Mr. President, it's extremely frustrating to me when we have a governor who says he stands with Texas, but yet our National Guard is at the southwest border taking orders from the President of the United States and not from the governor of Georgia. Mr. President, I hope this Senate can pass a resolution recognizing the current crisis that we have of illegal immigrants. Another member of my staff was at the airport as well, and he was kind of taken aback when a custodian was yelling for help. Does anyone speak Spanish yesterday? Does anyone speak Spanish? Mr. President, there was a man from Central America who did not know English and was illiterate in Spanish who came in on one of those airplanes. And he was having an anxiety attack. He was panicked. All he knew is he had to get to Chatsworth, Georgia. The member of my staff asked the custodian, said, how do you feel about this? He says, this happens every single day. He said, I'm the lowest paid person at this airport, and these people who are coming in, I want to help them as a fellow human, but I just don't know what to do. The crisis is under our nose, Mr. President, and I hope that even this Senate will find the courage to maybe grant the Government Oversight Committee subpoena power, because I think there's a lot of people at that airport that ought to be subpoenaed by this Senate, this Republican-controlled Senate, and get some answers to the human trafficking that's right under our nose. and I thank you for this point of personal privilege, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 29th. Point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise today for a subject matter that I know y'all are used to hearing me talk about, and that is crime. And a few weeks ago, or excuse me, a week before last, I had the opportunity to enter into that long list of victims here in the city of Atlanta. Met my wife out for dinner, parked my truck, which all of you are familiar with, especially the senator from the 22nd. He parks next to me in the garage. It's hard to hide that truck. I parked it out there, and my wife and I met my wife there. We went inside, had dinner, came out, noticed my gym bag was on the ground, and the rear side window of my truck was shattered. I felt a little angry, not too bad, because I knew there wasn't a whole lot in my truck, and the things that were in my truck were something that the average thief would not be interested in. Number one, my gym bag. Usually people that work out a lot don't go around breaking into people's vehicles. But I called 911 because my wife was in the parking lot with me, and it immediately went to voicemail, which I understand. I hung up, called back, did the same thing again, hung up a third time, just held my phone, and 911 here called me. And when I answered, it immediately put me back into voicemail. So I hit the button because it was a non-emergency call. I was not going to tie up 911 with a non-emergency call. I knew there was no substantial evidence that could be gathered out there beyond a video camera that would lead to the apprehension of whoever broke in my truck. Criminal trespass, if you will. There was no firearm in my truck. There was no anything of substantial value in my truck. My tennis shoes were a size 11, so I assumed they were either a size 10 or a size 12, and they didn't want those. But I'm a lucky person because I called my insurance company, told them what had happened. The next morning, I drove my truck to the parking deck and parked in my parking place next to the senator from the 22nd. The glass company showed up, went into the parking deck, and replaced my window. And because it was below my deductible, I paid them the $400 for the window. I can do all of that. A lot of citizens can't. The police chief of Atlanta has done an incredible job of lowering some of the violent crime rates. The city of Atlanta has done a great job pushing forward with the Public Safety Training Center to train law enforcement officers and firefighters and paramedics and all this other stuff. Good. They're doing a great job. I'm proud of them. Good for them. What we have to remember is while the murder rate goes down and while the rape cases may drop, we have to remember that every time a vehicle's broken into or a car is stolen, and please look at the numbers, a lot of vehicles are stolen in Atlanta. That number is not going down. They are impacting people's lives. And some of these individuals don't have $400 to buy a new window with. They have things in their vehicle that are important to them that are being stolen. So when we talk about crime, let's talk about all crimes, and don't discount the impact it has on families that do not have the funds and do not have the circumstances that I am blessed with. Because I promise you today, somewhere in Atlanta or some city, somebody's driving around with a piece of plastic covering a window while they carry their children to school. Crime is crime. Support the Atlanta Police Department and support all the good hard work they're doing. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 47th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to rise to help some of my friends that are going to be Bulldogs. They all wearing blue shirts today, but they're fixing to be Bulldogs. I know they all are because they're leaders in Jackson County. If I could, I'm going to ask all of our youth leadership in Jackson County to rise up in our balcony here. And I want to ask my friends to give them a round of applause. These are outstanding high school students in Jackson County. I want to welcome them to the Capitol. It's a great day to have you all here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you much for coming.
Recognize the senator from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just start this off with oyster roast and seafood boil. So Savannah Chatham Day is today, and the Savannah Area Chamber of Commerce welcomes you to the Freight Depot today at 5, and would love to have you there. And their oysters are fresh, and they're roasted and ready for you. Thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 2nd.
Know that, baby. Thank you, Mr. President. And I have a two-part point of personal privilege this morning. I have the outstanding folks from Hunt Army Airfield and Fort Stewart here with us today. We have our garrison commander of Hunt Army Airfield, our garrison commander from Fort Stewart, all of the 3rd Infantry Division, Rock of the Marne, here with us today. I want to make sure I recognize them. As you know, having Hunt Army Airfield, which is in my district, is an exciting opportunity, and we're excited just to have them here with us today. And my second point of personal privilege, Mr. President, is I want to remind my colleagues when we discuss and talk about immigration what the scriptures say in Leviticus chapter 19, beginning at verse number 33. It says, "When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God." Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? You have before you a consent calendar of privilege resolutions. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution on the consent calendar? Is there objection to the adoption of a resolution on this consent calendar? Chair hears none. The resolution on the consent calendar is adopted. Oh, yeah. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? All right, moving on to the rules calendar. Secretary will read the caption on SB 105.
Senate Bill 105, a bill by Senator Walker of the 20th and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 474101 of the OCGA relating to retirement benefits payable upon normal, early, or delayed retirement in the public school employees retirement system, so as to revise the minimum and maximum allowable benefit multiplier for current and future retirees and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Williams of the 25th District Chairman. Additionally, there is an actuarial investigation attached. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I brought a prop with me this morning. Senator Jackson did so good with her props yesterday, so I've got a school bus with me, and you'll understand why in a minute, I think. The state of Georgia has made great strides in supporting our educators and recognizing the value of our educators. We've given them historic pay raises, and to the extent that we now lead, I believe, the Southeast in average teacher pay, which I know we're all very, very proud of that. But there's a group of people that keep our schools running, keep our children safe, keep them fed, keep them warm in the winter and cool in the summer, keep the schools clean and sanitized. These people did not, they're essential workers. They did not get to go home when we had COVID. They had to continue doing their jobs. And that's the people that participate in the public school employees retirement system, also referred to as PEACers. So I'm talking about your school bus drivers, your cafeteria workers, your custodians, and your maintenance personnel. And I'm here today to talk to you about their retirement program. We've got a number of retirement programs in Georgia. The biggest one we have is the Teachers Retirement System, which you all are very familiar with. The state participates in funding that. In fact, generally we have to put $300, $400, $200 million into that program annually. The local school districts also fund that, as well as the teachers themselves. And it's a very good program and very good way to attract and retain teachers. Over 200,000 people are in that program, I'm told. Then we have the Employee Retirement System, ERS, which is for state employees. That's about 52,000 people, active members of that program. But a smaller program is the Public School Employees Retirement System, which has about 32,000 people. And that is where your non-certified employees in the school system get their retirement. This is 100% funded by the small dues by the employees, $90 a year, $10 a month for 9 months. And the rest of the funding comes from the state of Georgia. The local school districts do not participate in funding this at all. But I'm here today because we currently, if you were retired before August of 2012, the multiplier for your retirement is $14.75 per year of service. So you get $14.75 times 20 years of service, about $300 a month retirement. There have been some very modest COLAs over the years, so it would be a little bit more than that. People that retired after August of 2012, the multiplier is currently $16.50. Again, these are the essential workers that keep our schools running. They've kind of been a little bit overlooked and forgotten. I'm proposing we raise their multiplier from $16.50 to $17. This would also catch the people that are getting the $14.75, but bring them up to a $17 multiplier. And it also removes the cap so that would then give the board of the PEACers board the authority, if the fund had the adequate money in it, to at their discretion to increase it in the future. I had a bill Monday that was a little more controversial than I anticipated, but this ought to be a bill everybody in here can get behind, and I hope we can have a unanimous vote to show these people how much we appreciate what they do for our children every day. Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. As you all, I'll further, some I forgot to mention, retirement bills take 2 years, so you have to introduce them in the first year of a biennial, then you get an actuarial study during the interim, and then you come back and vote it in the committee with the figures. So the committee's reviewed the actuarial study. It does have a fiscal impact to the state. The initial impact is $5.6 million, and then an estimated future impact of about $5.2 million annually after that. So now I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You do have a couple of questions, Senator. I recognize the senator from the 33rd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
Basically, sir, you're just increasing the multiplier of the retirement to support essential school workers, and this bill is not dealing with hairstyles like yours or mine, right?
That's correct, Senator. Very good.
Recognize the senator from the 51st.
Thank you. Mr. President, will the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
I think you may have covered this, but I missed it. This covers school bus employees, also cafeteria workers, and other non-certified employees of the local school system, correct?
Yes, sir. Now, not to get too much in the weeds, but there is an exception there are certain non-certified employees, if they have like a foreman of a bus shop, for example, that has supervisory responsibility for other employees, oftentimes they're eligible for TRS, and they will elect TRS if they have that option.
Thank you. Will you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Can you give an example of a bus driver that's driven 30 years, what their retirement would be at the end of 30 years?
So under the current $16.50, you multiply 30 times $16.50, that's $480, and then $495 a year, $495 a month retirement plus whatever COLAs they got.
So it pretty much covers a power bill for a modest-sized home. Is that right?
That's about it. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 4th.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you so much bringing this bill. Were you aware that I was a school bus driver for 2 years in college?
I was not.
Yes, sir, I was. And I appreciate you doing that. And they deserve every bit they get. These people really take this job seriously, and they're very professional about it. Thank you for bringing this bill to us.
Well, I'm proud to get to bring it. I do want to recognize our chairman that has been supportive of the chairman of the retirement committee, from our undertaker friend. He's been very supportive, and then the prior chairman of the committee too, and it did pass unanimously out of our committee. So thank you, sir.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope we can get a unanimous vote on this to show our appreciation for these hard-working Georgians. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Senator from the 41st, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm asking for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 34th.
Without objection, the senator from the 34th is excused. Secretary reads Senate Bill 328.
Senate Bill 328, a bill by Senator Albers of the 56th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 47 of the OCGA relating to retirement and pensions so as to revise many provisions of the Peace Officers Annuity and Benefit Fund, to revise provisions related to eligibility and full-time employment, to revise provisions related to the appointment, terms of office, and duties of the Board of Trustees, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Williams of the 25th District Chairman. Additionally, there was an actuarial investigation attached. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I bring Senate Bill 328 before you today. This is proposed changes to the Police Officers Annuity and Benefit Fund, or as we say, the POAB. This is going to improve the benefits for the members, update certain administrative areas, and have a membership dues increase agreed to by the fund. This fund is led by none other than our very own Homer Bryson, who's in the gallery, who served this state for decades in numerous capacities and has been a true leader and continues to do that in his job leading the POAB. Administrative changes include providing a more concise definition for peace officer that is more in line with a post definition, police officer standards and training. Should be noted this does not change any eligibility by a member of the fund
Another change is also the definition of full-time employment, again, tracking from consistency with post. Other changes include adopting job titles and duties, board powers and duties, and the application process. This bill proposes several amendments. The 5-year waiting period and matching years of service requirement, including buybacks, is removed, and the amount now time you can buy back is from 5 to 7 years. You'll be able to buy back more than the day that you originally joined the fund, and additionally, purchase time will be counted toward vesting when it currently is not. Cost of buyback time will be calculated at a full actuarial cost. To help with the shortage of police officers, which each one of us is quite familiar with, the proposed bill will allow members who have vested after 30 years in the fund, regardless of age, to remain employed in public safety and receive their POA benefit pension, similar to what we did in years past for our teachers. Death benefits will also be increased from the current $3,500 with restrictions to $5,000 without restrictions. Line of duty deaths would increase from $5,500 to $10,000 without restrictions. Another change is to refund 100% of all dues paid to any member who would like to opt out of the fund. Lastly, as what's in your folders today, the bill has a favorable analysis. We appropriate no dollars to this from the state. This is funded by the members themselves and other fines and fees. Mr. President, I would ask every member of this body to rally behind our law enforcement officers who have some of the toughest jobs there are. This bill will help maintain some of our very best who we need to stay in their careers for the entire time, as they're the most experienced and the most capable of responding. If there are no questions, I will yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You do have a few questions, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, this is is it not true this is a volunteer pension program that rank and file law enforcement officers can pay into from their check post-tax in order to buy this benefit?
Yes, Senator, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing up and reminding everyone here who's not familiar that this is voluntary, a fund that was created by our law enforcement officials for our law enforcement officials.
Senator, for the yield.
Please.
Senator, is it not true that some municipalities and counties in the state of Georgia have taken on this responsibility for themselves and pay these dues for the officers so they can include this as a part of the officers' pension and benefit program, thereby giving officers the opportunity to have funds available once they retire if they're not eligible for Social Security or other types of pension plans?
Yes, that's absolutely correct, and it is my hope, and I know you and I have worked together on this, that every single local government will do that on behalf of the men and women who are serving them in law enforcement.
Thank you for carrying this, Senator.
Thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, Senator.
Isn't it true that most peace officers in Georgia are having to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet?
Yes, that is unfortunately true with the low pay and the difficult challenge of the job. Many need to work a second or even a third job to make ends meet.
Isn't it time that we really look after our peace officers and try to do the right thing and help them every way we can?
I couldn't agree more, Senator, and I believe this bill is one good step in that direction.
Well, I appreciate your dedication to public safety and to the peace officers. As we go forward, is there a time limit on this? How soon can they start contributing to this retirement fund?
They can start contributing day one when they're hired, as well as this case, we've increased buyback if they were not in the fund up to 7 years. And we are working on several other initiatives to figure out how we can increase that benefit to keep our finest, our men and women of law enforcement, in their careers for a full duration of their working lives.
Now, this wouldn't interfere with any other retirement or IRA or anything else that they have?
Not at all. This is additional and supplemental to help out with the hazards of their job and to be able to reward them to have a full, meaningful life after they've retired.
Well, thank you very much for bringing this. Look forward to supporting it. Thank you for your service. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Senator from the 19th, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I yield.
Senator, can you discuss the revenue impact of this bill? I know you did already, but I just want to make sure that I understood it.
Certainly, there's an increase in the dues from $25 to $35. With that increase, it comes back at about $1.7 million for a cost that's actually less than that. So there's actually going to be additional funds that are in the POAB. Again, it's been superbly managed and kept up to date, and that's why we've been over time being able to increase some of the COLAs that are given to those folks.
Well, Senator, further yield.
Certainly.
Senator, would it be fair to characterize this increased benefit as a benefit charged by the members to the members?
That is a great way to put it, Senator. Thank you.
Senator, yield for one more question?
Yes, sir.
Is there a state budgetary impact for the increase of this fund?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. There is no state budgetary impact whatsoever.
You have no more questions, sir.
Thank you. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
I recognize the good senator from the 14th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just rise briefly to add a word of bipartisan support to this legislation, but in doing so to focus on what I think is a really important feature of this type of legislation that we need to be mindful of. This is not just some kind of a COLA-style salary or benefit adjustment just to keep up with inflation or anything else. It could be that, it is that, but more importantly than that, this is an investment in peace officers, not just law enforcement that we know in our municipal departments, state level, but also correctional officers, juvenile justice officers, folks who not only have an issue with their checkbook, but also with the professionalism and the concerns about whether there's dignity in the jobs that they're doing. And if you ask people how to better respect them in their jobs, very often they will tell you, pay me, right? Put your money where your mouth is and show me that you support me in the way that I can feel most directly. So I think that this is a really important investment in peace officers of all kinds that shows that we are willing to let them, again, on a voluntary basis, buy in, put skin in the game, and enhance the benefit of being in the profession so that not only do they have enough money to pay bills, put food on the table, but also to have dignity in the profession, to aspire to be professionals, and to recruit individuals on that basis. So I just wanted to focus us on that professionalism aspect too, that I think bills like these are really positive steps towards recruiting and retaining the type of people we want doing these jobs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary reads Senate Bill 335.
Senate Bill 335 A bill by Senator Albers of D56 and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 16622 of the OCGA relating to incest so as to expressly include relationship by adoption and further purposes. The Senate Committee on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 56. Busy man today.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Today I bring before you Senate Bill 335, the Safeguarding Adopted Children from Sexual Violence Act. This is one of those bills that I'm sad that we have to bring before you and change the law because it has happened in our state. But I'm so grateful it was brought to me by one of our greatest district attorneys in the state representing the Blue Ridge Circuit in Cherokee County. And I'm glad to have her here today, standing next to the senator from the 32nd in the back, Susan Treadaway. We met with our delegation several times in discussing ways we could better support everyone from law enforcement through the prosecution and the courts. And one of the issues that came up was making sure that the incest laws that we have today are in parity with adopted parents as they are with traditional blood or half-blood relatives. If you look at the code 16622 in section 2 of this bill, it simply states that a person who commits incest, when such a person engages in other things, I won't read it all aloud, that he or she knows is related by blood, adoption, or by marriage, and also adds by virtue of adoption. This simply makes it consistent. And let me take a moment to talk about the incredible work that we have done over the years in this Senate body and the leadership of the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor on updating our adoption laws. We've worked very diligently in helping kids who need to find that home. The adopted parents that both start either in fostering or straight to adoption are true heroes who take a child and give him that home. And 99.999% of them do a phenomenal job. However, there is that rare occurrence where someone has crossed the line and done something blatantly wrong. And updating this law will make sure that we prosecute those folks as they should be. I'm going to ask for your favorable consideration on this law today to show all kids, no matter where they're from or what their family situation is, that we stand behind them, that we support them, and we send a very strong message to those that would go counter to this and do what they know is wrong, is we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, do the right thing, and we'll continue to have a safe environment for our children. And with that, Mr. President, I would yield for questions. Thank you. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We're going to stand at ease for a little bit. We've got something we are working with the House on, and so we're going to stand at ease for a bit. We'll reconvene here about 12:15. So if you have any lunch plans, just postpone them for a little bit. All right, the Senate will come back to order. I told you we wouldn't be too long. I recognize the senator from the 27th for a motion.
Mr. President, pursuant to Senate Rule 7-1.10b, I give notice that on the next legislative day, I intend to move that the Senate consider House action on Senate Bill 26.
Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 26, a bill by Senators Olazal of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to permit meetings and public hearings of development authorities and community improvement districts to be held by teleconference and for other purposes. This is the House Committee on Governmental Affairs recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative LaHood of the 175th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator, for letting the body know and putting everybody on notice. Look forward to you calling it up. Recognize the senator from 26. What purpose do you rise, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Mr. Governor, I would ask that the rules be suspended in order for a bill to be introduced and read for the first time.
The senator has asked that the rules be suspended so a bill can be introduced for the first time. Is there objection? Without objection. Come on up, Senator. Mm-hmm. Secretary, read the caption. Okay. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 442, a bill by Senator Lucas of the 26th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to state health planning and development so as to provide that after a certain date, certificate of need requirement shall not apply to institutional health services and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Regulated industries. For all you young folks, that's 40 years of parliamentary experience right there, so take note. All right, moving back on to the rules calendar. Senate Bill 369. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 369, a bill by Senator Burns of the 23rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 2 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to registration and licensing of motor vehicles generally, so as to provide for the issuance of license plates commemorating the United States of America's semi-quincentennial and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District Chairman. The Committee on Public Safety offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 369. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 2 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to registration and licensing of motor vehicles generally, so as to provide for the issuance of license plates commemorating the United States of America's semi-quincentennial and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from 23rd. Speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'll be brief. And if you have a few questions, I'll be briefer. Is briefer a good word? This is Senate Bill 369. It is a commemorative license plate for the semi-quincentennial of the American Revolution. That's 250 years. So technically, you can date the American Revolution from about April the 19th of 1775. That was the attack by the British on Lexington and Concord, through the Treaty of Paris in September 3rd of 1783. But this tag is designed for Georgia to continue to celebrate this historic event. It is not a vanity plate. There is no additional cost to Georgians who select this plate. It would be the primary plate of Georgia between 2026 and 2030. There are currently two primary plates: the peach plate that we know and love, the peach patch plate that some of you prefer, and then this would be the third option, and it would be the primary option, meaning that if you have a desire to have this tag, you will receive it as the primary plate of Georgia. Again, you will get a standard tag fee, not a vanity requirement. No group benefits from this plate. There is a key component of this bill that is focused on education. Working with both the Department of Revenue and the Department of Education, we will support students in Georgia. Middle school students in Georgia, 6th through 8th grade, will have a lesson unit and education on the American Revolution, and then they will provide design to be included on the left-hand portion of the plate as the logo. This competition or experience will be managed and supported by the Department of Education. We have the support of the Sons of the American Revolution, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Georgia Historical Society, the Committee on Civics Education, the Commission on Civics Education, and the Center for Civic Engagement. I am grateful to a constituent in my district who brought this to my attention, and I ask for your favorable consideration. I'm happy to accept questions, or I'm happy to yield a well. No questions. Yield.
Oh, you do have a couple questions, Senator, or you could yield. But Senator from the 14th, you have a question?
Brief questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the Senator yield?
Absolutely.
Senator, can you walk me through the prefixes in the word semi-quincentennial?
Absolutely.
Am I understanding correctly that's 500 years divided by 2?
That's very good. So semi-quincentennial, centennial is 100, quin is 500, semi is half of 500, 250.
The Senator's further yield?
Absolutely, but just briefly.
Is there a reason we're not putting the word semi-quincentennial on the license plate?
Absolutely, and the reason is I can't spell it.
Thank you, Senator.
And no one else can either. If there are no further questions, I'm happy to yield the well.
The senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there questions on the adoption of the committee substitute? Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 44 and the nays are 3. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 9 a.m. Thursday, February the 1st.
The majority leader has moved to stand adjourned until 9 a.m. Secretary, read the announcements.
The Rules Committee will meet upon adjournment today. The Public Safety Committee will meet at 1 p.m. in 450. The Higher Education Committee will meet at 2 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. The Insurance and Labor Committee will meet at 2 p.m. in MES 1. The Health and Human Services Committee will meet at 3 p.m. in 450. The Finance Committee will meet at 4 p.m. in MES 1. And the Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security Committee will meet at 5 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, February 1st. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. We're adjourned.